again, welcome to everybody. Here's a reminder, keep your video on as much as you possibly can, please. That would be very helpful to everybody. Mute your microphone when not talking. And of course, share your ideas, questions and best practices at any time in the chat. And then finally, if you do need some help, reach out to our good mate, Jamie, who's going to be able to help and support you in that. Let's quickly move along to our wonderful Jim Carrey images and have a good look at those images. That's an expressive face if ever I saw one. So we'll count down from 3 to back down to 1 as I did a minute ago, and I'll give you a chance to, you had a rehearsal, now it's time to really bring on the right face. So 3, 2, 1. What are you thinking about the future, people? I'm with you, Anna. I'm really excited. Fantastic. All right. Sometimes these things work and sometimes they're less than successful, but fantastic to see that many of you are excited about the future and what it holds for all of us, particularly as we step into facilitating groups of people who are working as volunteers in teams and organizations around our fantastic planet. So first and foremost, let's begin, shall we? We're going to get underway with just a very, very quick description, which hopefully many of you can relate to. And then Jamie is going to put you into some breakouts to have some conversation around a couple of key questions when it comes to working and collaborating with volunteers. And Shane, I want to acknowledge you and your colleagues at Uniting Care doing some of the amazing work that you do in your community around Townsville in Queensland. So many of us have done a lot of work in these sort of organisations over many years. And I think it's a very powerful contribution to our community. So let's have a quick look at what we might mean, some of the sort of working descriptions we might start with in our conversations tonight around what is volunteering. And I'm sure each and every one of you would have your own description of what volunteering might be. But let's just take this on board for a moment as a starting point. Volunteering is a discretionary act of service. I kind of like that expression, and you might like to talk about that in your breakout. Yeah, an individual or group who freely give their time, talent, and labor, helping to meet the needs of other people. I mean, that's just a remarkable purpose, is it not, for all of us as facilitators as well as volunteers. Sometimes they're specifically trained in certain areas that are consistent with what they do and how they support others. Other times they're just drawn down on or engaged on an as-needs basis when there's a natural disaster or perhaps a community crisis. So with that kind of, I'll call it a loose description, Jamie, let's get into our first conversation. And we're going to pop you into breakouts. As you move to the breakout room, which sadly can still take a minute or two, gives you an opportunity to pause and reflect on your own personal and professional experience with volunteering and with volunteers. So as you get into your breakouts, this one will be for 12 minutes. Please just hold for a minute to make sure others can can join you. You typically will either have 3, no more than 5, so minimum of 3, no more than 5 in a room. And here are the 2 big questions for this little breakout. What do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy most when working with volunteer teams and organisations? And then secondly, what do you find most difficult or challenging as you facilitate the conversations and interactions amongst volunteers and their organisational leaders and managers? What do you find challenging? Thank you, Jamie. Enjoy. We'll see you back in 12 minutes and we'll have a bit of a chat about your conversation. Here come. There we go. Coming back into the room. We'll welcome back, folks. We're waiting for just the rest of everyone to turn up and we'll have a quick chat. So where do we find the Holloways today? Catherine and Grant, where do we find you?
Just at home in Horsham.
Horsham, beautiful, Victoria.
Yeah. How are you, Catherine?
Outstanding.
Good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while. So I was just wondering that because my screen's not very big. So I was thinking, I think I might be Catherine.
All right, we're getting everyone back into the room now, Jamie.
Excellent.
We had our screen off before while we had our dinner.
And that's quite reasonable too, Catherine. Well,
I'm
welcome
about to
back.
dish mine up. I'll
There you go.
see you
Well,
back in a
welcome
sec.
back. Welcome back, everybody.
Well.
I know it was a fairly quick conversation, but again, hopefully a chance for you to share a few views and look, just a quick opportunity for us to share what the headlines were. What were some of the highlights from your conversation? We're keen to hear from one or two of you. So again, we're tight for time, but if one or two of you be wanting to share, just visually raise a hand and open a microphone. It looks like we have Patrick. Patrick, what were some of the highlights in your conversation? Just one or two.
Yeah, I'll share more on the challenges that our group encountered in working or facilitating with volunteers. It's burnout. The fact that volunteerism is an activity that you don't get compensated for, and if people take advantage of you, or if you pour yourself too much without taking care of yourself, burnout happens. So that's what the three of us in my breakout shared
Right.
an experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate that reality. Jamie, burnout's a big issue for people around the planet these days. One of the most important volunteer roles we can involve ourselves in, of course, is being a parent to some children, right? Jamie?
That's right, Brad. And I think with that combination of work and those balances, it is really tough, Patrick. And in a volunteer space in particular, people will often take a bit more. But thank you, Patrick.
Can we have someone else sharing? And again, we want to encourage you to use the chat function as well. So don't feel you have to either open a mic or say anything, but you can have a voice through the chat function. What about, did anyone discuss what they enjoyed about working with volunteer groups? SJ.
Yeah, we had a couple of things that came out and a few repeat ones, and one was definitely around the passion that comes from working with a volunteer group, and also the sense of preparedness that people come because they've got a topic that's really important to them, that they're generally self-driven. That's something that we really enjoy about being with it. And the can-do attitude when you're working with a group of volunteers who are passionate about a particular subject is that they'll just keep going until they find a solution that's best for the group that they're representing or working for or volunteering for.
Wow, that's spectacularly good, isn't it? I mean, this whole notion, SJ and Jamie and others, of course, of serving some purpose that's bigger than me. It goes beyond who I am. It does tend to stimulate, drive, motivate, encourage, and sometimes enable us to be at our very best as a member of society. So that's an incredibly powerful motivator for many. I'll just take one more if I could, please. Either an aspect. Yes, please. Let's take Laurel. Laurel. Just need to, can't quite hear you, just need to unmute. There you go.
Yep, got it. Yeah, I was trying to mime it, but it might take too long.
Love it.
I think we found it was a really multi-dimensional experience because there were a lot of variables. And so one thing was clear boundaries, so everybody knows. And I'm very apprised of the burnout story. I understand that well. But really, there can be such joy as when you're volunteering with something you feel really passionate about. You can go for it, and actually, you want people to get out of the way. So yeah,
that's right. Get out of the way. It's actually a very interesting point. I think, Laurel, is as much as we need sometimes for people to get out of the way, or at least impediments to get out of the way, we also need to bring everyone together, don't we? We need that kind of critical level of alignment, so we're all focused on delivering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our purpose and full. Yeah, fantastic. All right, folks. Well, look, in our limited time, I appreciate that sort of quick debrief. At least we got to hear from a few of you, and I'm just noticing, and I know that SJ and Jamie are keeping an eye on the chat there too. There's quite a lot of wonderful statements being shared, ideas and thoughts and concerns in the chat. So I encourage you to have a good read of those. We're going to move on now by looking at what we regard as one of the first and most important keys for successfully facilitating with groups, teams, organisations made up of volunteers. Whether it's a charity, whether it's Uniting Care for Shane, for example, up in Townsville there, mate, or it happens to be a church or a community group, or dare I even say your own family. And it's down to these three elements, these three keys that we sort of alluded to in our promotional material: an outward mindset, a dialogue skill set, and an influence tool set. And we're literally tonight just going to touch these gently and at a very, very high level. So let me just share with you some of the work that we've been doing over many years with our friends at the Arbinger Institute. And we can make available some additional resources for those of you who are interested, but you can also do your own searching. Mindset is more than a belief about oneself. It refers to the way people see and regard their world, how they see others, how they respond to others, how they see themselves, circumstance, challenges, opportunities, obligations. And the most important thing to grab from this in this moment right now is that our behaviors are always driven by, guided by, they're a function of how we see the world around us, and particularly the people in it, from moment to moment. And so it has a deep effect on the results we get to enjoy, as we just talked about a few seconds ago. Okay, so outward mindset, there's a few slides in each of these sections that really refer to some of this core material. Some of you will be familiar with the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, who wrote a book called Mindset recently, built on some of her research, and she focused on how we see ourselves, the individual, the person. How do I see myself? How does Brad see himself? And I can look at myself as either fixed, carrying a fixed mindset, where I am unable to change, don't want to change. It's how I am, it's who I am. It's genetically engineered into me. This is the unit you get when he came off the production line, right, with a few mods. And then, of course, there's the growth mindset, which is I haven't learned how to do this yet. The key word there is yet. I'm open to change. I can move. I can adjust. I can adapt. I can reshape my practices and my habits. I can learn and I can develop. I can exercise my agency to grow and change. So that's the whole notion of that dichotomy between fixed and growth mindset. It's a focus. It's a way of seeing myself. However, in organizations, and let's take our volunteer organizations particularly, one of the most powerful things we need to accept is that I can't do much by myself. We come together for a purpose that we can't fulfill without each other or in isolation from one another. So we now need to look at the work of the Arbinger Institute, which expresses this other dichotomy, this other dimension or continuum called inward and outward mindset. With an inward mindset, fundamentally, I'm focused on myself. With an outward mindset, fundamentally, I'm focused on others and what we can achieve collectively together. So as you can appreciate here, these numbers that are appearing in the quadrants, where we need to move to in our facilitation practices, we design, we facilitate or make easier the conversations happening within our volunteer groups, is we as facilitators need to be in that fourth quadrant, where we're personally open to growth, and at the same time, we're focused on the needs and the challenges and the struggles and the aspirations, the dreams of the groups that we serve. So here's a quick way of describing this. When my mindset is inward, I essentially turn my back on others at some level. I don't really care about other people's needs, objectives, or struggles. I see people, and these are well-known archetypes for these characterizations, but I see people, I interpret them as vehicles I can use to get what I want. A bit like I used to use the expression in the mining industry, a bit like the Toyota Hilux that's driving around the mine site, moving things from A to B. It's a utility. I see people as a vehicle to get what I want. I see them as an obstacle getting in my way that I can blame, or I see them as irrelevant to my goals, so I can ignore them altogether. I can dismiss, diminish, devalue. However, with an outward mindset, I'm alive to and interested in other people. I'm interested in their challenges, their needs, their objectives, their goals, their struggles, their desperate aspirations. And I see others as people whom I'm willing, able, and open to helping. So an outward mindset is absolutely fundamental to stepping into an organization made up of volunteers who want to largely help others. Most volunteers typically are operating out of an outward mindset. Not always, because we all toggle backwards and forwards. We move up and down this continuum in life. We all have moments when we're inward.
recording.
And what
So just noting that to people that they're available through the recording.
fantastic. So let's just quickly have a quick look at this. Is a one little way of doing this, which you can do with groups I've used for many, many years. It's an icebreaker. You get people into groups and you ask them 3 questions. Their job is to interview. So I would interview SJ, I'd interview Shane, I'd interview Laurel, and I'd simply say, what are you needing or trying to achieve in this moment? Why is that important to you? What will that get you? That's a conversation so I can learn about other people, right? The next one, the 4th question is, how might I actually help you? Now, when you operate from an outward mindset, the aim is then to adjust my efforts to be helpful to that person for those reasons, to get that result in their life. And then, of course, the accountability question is this: was I actually helpful to you? Which you ask, of course, after you've delivered that help, whether you've helped them or you've hindered their progress towards their goals and aspirations. So that's a very, very, very quick, that's a great little icebreaker. I do that regularly. And in fact, as a facilitator, professional facilitator for too many years, as some people here know, the truth of the matter is when there's a conflict in the room, I'll often engage in a process stop and suggest, let's step into our small groups. Let's see if we can refocus ourselves. Let's get aligned with each other yet again, because we might have lost our alignment in the heat of the conversation, the interactions and the process. This is brilliant also for an intervention when there is otherwise a conflict taking place in a room or a group. So with that said, that's a very, very quick tiptoe through something around outward mindset. I'm just going to open the opportunity for anyone to ask a question or raise a thought or share an experience they may have had. We've just got a couple of minutes and then we're going to take a very short bio break. When we come back from that bio break, we're going to get into a breakout room again, and it'll be a different series of people. So you get to meet different people and have different conversations, and it'll be focused around this outward mindset, this notion of seeing people truly as they are, as people, right? As people who have needs, wants, desires, and struggles. So any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas at this point?
I really like that, and we do that in our pre-course calls. But to specify learn, help, and account is really captures something there.
Yeah.
Very easy to focus then.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, if we talk about this, Laurel, from the Arbinger Institute's point of view, we call these a meet to learn, meet to help, meet to account, because these conversations or the questions that I've offered here on screen can happen independently of each other. It might not be in just one engagement. It could happen over a period of time. So this whole notion of meeting with another person as a person and learning about them, and arguably they learning about Laurel, and then we're mutually helpful to one another. One of the greatest questions that I was ever taught was, have I helped you? You know, have I been helpful to you? And when I find myself up against challenges, for example, I often have to ask myself, what part have I played in that? What part have I played in that problem? Thank you, Laurel. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, or ideas that emerged out of that little quick?
Brad, there's a wonderful comment here from Heather, and Heather's asking, are people open to answering those sort of questions in a conflict? So I guess that can lead to that lovely account comment you've got there. Was I helpful to you? So I guess being open yourself is part of that strategy. But how would you engage someone who's, you know, in conflict and may not be open to the further dialogue?
So there's no perfect answer, Heather. I'm sure you already know that, right? Some of our better practices, though, are things like making sure that the persons that are involved in the conflict can see you as someone that they can feel safe with. And that safety, that psychological safety, comes when I am able to share my good intent. And so you and I as facilitators need to be clear about our good intent. And often we need to share that frequently, okay? Certainly at the front end of an intervention or an intervention or a interaction, but also, you know, in a moment where there appears to be a misunderstanding about each other's intent. there is a wonderful technique, and I can help you with that later on if you're interested, or others can help you, called contrasting, where you just quickly clarify your intentions. If they've been misunderstood, you can simply say something like this. Heather, the last thing I wanted you to think right now, or I wanted you to feel, was X, Y, and Z, that I might have been attacking you or in conflict with you. What I do want us to be able to do is to address the A, B, and C. So it's the don't and the do phrasing in your language that helps to clarify intent in the moment. So there's a couple of suggestions for what they were. Is there anyone else that's got a suggestion that might be able to help Heather with that excellent question? If people are in conflict, would they be willing, able to actually hear you? I think I'll move on. Yes, Yvonne.
Oh, just I'm ringing from Dublin in Ireland, and one of the things that you brought up there, I think it's a very important point about them feeling safe.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling safe, it won't come out anyway.
Yeah, that's
so
so
it's
true.
creating that opportunity. So.
Yeah, how beautiful, that whole notion of safety, Yvonne. And, you know, psychological safety, for one of a very quick topic. I think we could go down that rabbit hole very easily, very quickly. But let's just put two things, two foundations: mutual purpose and mutual respect. So we get into dialogue when mutual purpose exists and good intent. It's front-ended with good intent. We stay in dialogue, don't we, when we feel this sense of mutual worth, respect for one another. This person is someone of value and worth in my life right now in this moment. We might only have a transaction or one interaction, or we might have an enduring relationship. Yeah. Fantastic, Yvonne. Thank you. That's a wonderful contribution from that far away. Oh my goodness. I remember the last time I was in Ireland. It was wonderful. Jamie.
It's fantastic, isn't it, to get those connections? And I think that safe place is exactly where we all do begin to open up, even if you might have to try a few times to attempt that with someone. Generally reflecting what they're saying, because they may not feel heard, is probably a start, and then slowly working towards the issue of, you know, you're being heard, and then just check in maybe occasionally as well. It's really hard, depends on the situation, and certainly in that passionate environment of community.
Yes, absolutely.
And it can be difficult.
Jamie, there's two things that we all have a need for, two basic human needs. One is we all need to be heard, and we all need to be seen. It's interesting that they correspond with, relate to our two primary sensory data channels of audio and vision. So yeah, we all have a need to be seen. We all have a need to be heard. We need to be seen as people. We need to have a voice with each other. And those two elements are so fundamental to our practice as facilitators, where we make those conversations easier, not harder. How have I made things harder for the group that I'm here to serve is a vital question to ask. We're going to take a quick 5-minute bio break, people, but just to give you a chance to stretch. In 5 minutes, we'll be right back. We're going to get right back into it with another breakout focused on outward mindset. But let me just encourage you with this. I've got one last little sort of trigger for you as you step into your 5-minute stretch or go and get a glass of water. Here you go. In all of this, a sort of a meta principle that sits over everything. Outward mindset, dialogue skills, influence skills is suspending our judgments of each other long enough to actually engage our curiosity for and with one another. And I'll leave you with that thought. It's time for 5-minute bio break. We'll see you back in 5 minutes. I'll play some music and feel free to go and get a drink.
That's 6:48 then, Brad.
Fantastic, Jamie. You are a champion.
Unless you're in Dublin.
Yeah, and 5:48 if you're in Brisbane.
Just been there are a few people with connection issues. So I've just been responding to them individually, and I think Anna Carr's having some issues, so she'll try again or bail.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, sadly, the internet's been a little bit unstable of late.
That was a really good discussion. I really liked that, how Pat started off with, overcommitting. So that's that real issue that can happen when you're at home. And then SJ spoke about passion and Laurel spoke about joy. That's a really good one, joy. And even if it's not a community space, you can still get joy from the work. And and I like how Cassie mentioned that pink slide you've got is too bright, so she can't read it.
Fair enough. Yeah,
so that was,
unfortunately, the one thing I can't control is other people's technology.
No, I know.
It looks magnificent on my screen.
Well, it doesn't mind too. So maybe it's very dark in her room, and the pink would dominate the eyes.
Maybe. Yep.
I also like that safe place I like that safe place we ended up talking about. So, and suspending judgment is fantastic.
Yeah.
I've got the room set up too already.
And
I might
with different people.
Yeah, different people. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mate.
I might even do it again now that Anna's left.
Yep. Not a problem, my friend.
I'm getting used to this. Thank you.
Good.
10 minutes for this one and 30 seconds to come back in. I can change that here.
Yep.
And Anna has dropped off. So.
Understood.
Okay, that's cool. So anything that you'd like me to do or not do?
No, you're doing just brilliantly, mate.
Thank you.
Just brilliantly.
It's good one.
It's the brilliant Jamie I know.
I feel like I'm surfing on top of the wave.
Keep it going that way.
I've got to pack my gear and stuff for tomorrow's ride.
For the challenge, yeah.
Tomorrow. Thank you for your contribution. That was lovely.
Oh, total pleasure, man. Total pleasure. It's a very good cause that we're supporting in one way. You're doing the hard work.
Yeah, it was a hard ride today, this morning in training, and one of the girls fell off a bike, which wasn't very good. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's never nice when that happens.
Pam's just said to you, Jamie, surfing the group is always fun. Thank you, Pam.
Well, forget Pam. Thanks, Pam. We've been heard.
Not a problem. I love it when a group goes off and you can just skim along the top. That's what I look for.
You and me both, Pam.
Do you surf, Pam?
No, I don't, just metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically.
I surf the wave of mania in some of my groups.
Surf the wave of mania. I like that.
You know, when it's at that tipping point, you don't know whether it's going to go spectacularly fabulously or spectacularly not wrong.
Yep, that's it.
Yep, I love it.
I love the term mania of your groups, because that's a very positive statement as well. It can be.
All right, Jamie, I'm going, and Pam, sorry to interrupt, but we're going to restart. So let's get everyone back in the room. I'm just going to pump the music up. Time to restart, folks. There we go. We'll just put the music to one side. Welcome back to everyone. Hopefully had a chance to quickly stretch in the lounge room or on the balcony or out in the backyard or wherever you happen to be. Yvonne in Dublin, my goodness me, where were you stretching? I don't know.
We're not outside.
Definitely not. Not at this time of the year. Anyway, fantastic. Good to have you with us.
Brad, you're still sharing your music file on your screen too.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. I'll get that out of the way. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Let's restart, shall we? That's a clear screen now, Jamie?
Yep.
Good man. Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to step into another breakout. And this time we're going to talk in our breakouts, if we could focus our energy and our experience and sharing our thoughts and worries, concerns, and ideas and best practices is what we're looking to get a bit of an exchange happening here. Let's focus around this mindset piece, how I show up as a facilitator to serve a group of people who've come together for a purpose that they apparently can't fulfill when they're apart from one another. So am I, as the facilitator, with the design and the process and the tools and the flow, etc., the engagement? Am I helping or hindering those people have those conversations? So how do you see the people you're collaborating with during an engagement? Do you see them as objects getting in your way? Do you see them as objects getting in each other's way? How are you interpreting them? Do you see them truly as people as they really are, with desires, with struggles, with interests, with aspirations? And very importantly, what's the impact of your mindset? Jamie's, mine, Brad, SJ, whoever, what's the impact of your mindset on how you show up in your facilitation engagements, particularly at crucial moments? Now, I'm going to rattle these off really quickly, but just grab a couple of them. I'm going to give you 8. Here are these crucial moments that we know through great research over the last 30 years and deep practice over the last 30 years have what we call in the social sciences disproportionate influence and impact on our relationships and our results in life. So these will be true in your private life as well as your professional, family, community, and workplace. Moments of disappointment, moments of disagreement, moments of misunderstanding, moments of comparison, goal-setting moments, problem-solving moments, decision-making moments, and feedback moments. Let's just pick 3 to play with. Moments of disappointment, when you expected something and you got something less. Jamie's facilitating a beautiful piece of work at the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment in Canberra, or wherever he happens to be today. And he was expecting this to happen, but something less than his expectation took place. Jamie's now disappointed. How do you turn up? How do you show up? Let's go to the home place. Let's just say Brad and his wife, her name is Eve. We've been together for a long time, so we know each other very, very well. And I disappointed Eve. She was expecting this from me and she got something less than that from me. How do you show up? Do you show up with curiosity? Do you show up with judgment? Do you show up with a heart at war with the other person or situation? Or do you show up with a heart at peace? What's the intent and motivation that you show up with in those kind of crucial moments of what we call disproportionate influence and impact in our lives? So let's get into our breakouts, Jamie. Time for another 10-minute chat around those couple of questions.
Wow.
G'day, Heather.
Talk magic.
It's magic, isn't it? All right, everybody. Welcome back to the main room. Hopefully you've had a great time talking with each other around mindset, the mindset of a facilitator helping people who all they want to do is help other people and they're volunteering to do so. Right. So let's take a couple of seconds to debrief your conversation. So just 1 or 2 again. What are some key takeaways you took from that? So we've got Gabriel in Singapore. Fantastic, man. Good to see some people from overseas again. So what sort of things did you take away from that conversation? A couple of highlights, takeaways. Gabriel.
Thanks, Brad. I think our conversation consisted of people from different countries, from Casey as well as Shane. Yeah. So like, I think what we discussed was mainly paid your mindset being a paid facilitator approaching a group is always naturally one of service because we're paid to do so. But I think the challenge comes when we are unpaid, and let's say we are the main volunteer for a particular event and we're trying to get other volunteers to serve and adopt that same mindset of service. So I think that becomes really quite challenging sometimes. Yeah. So what we realize is that you need to adopt a mindset of service to each individual and to form specific win-win partnerships so that they can be on board and to support you in creating that event for that volunteer organization.
Thank you, Gabriel. That is beautiful, man, because I got to tell you, after 30 years of practice as a facilitator, if I in any way, shape, or I get paid to be a facilitator, right? So I get paid. And I got to tell you, 99% of the time these days, I take into the engagement, that is the contracting up front and the facilitation of the group and the debriefing of this, I take in the unpaid mindset. So think about that for a bit, folks. Take a different mindset. Not only want a service, you're absolutely spot on, but I take the unpaid mindset in. The money, I know I need it. We need it in our businesses. We need it in our lives. Of course we do. But if you can create for yourself this switch, if you want to call it that, and I take in an outward mindset, but this thinking that goes with, I'm here regardless of whether I pay it or not. I want to be at my best. Here's another way of thinking of it. I want to be, how might I be at my best as the facilitator here? And I might be one of 5 facilitators in a big engagement, for example, which I do. How might I be at my best so that I invite others, it's not surprising, to be at their very best? That's the challenge we face every day. Beautiful. One more. Thank you, Gabriel. One more sort of takeaway or highlight from your conversation.
And while someone does think, Brad, there's a comment there in chat from Heather, and Heather's saying Pam has a facilitator mindset and she switches into that mindset with a group.
Yeah.
And of course, she just said thank you to Gabriel too.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And again, that facilitator mindset. I mean, if you think about the root meaning of the word facilitate or facilitator, facile, it comes from that word which says to make easier. So again, if you take that mindset of making something easier for others, who's going to judge that? Am I or are they? Of course,
and
they
Selena
are
talks
at
about
some level, right? Absolutely. Spot on, Selena. Yeah, that notion of I am here in this moment to be of service and to make life easier for the people that I'm engaged with. Beautiful. Fantastic. All right, let's move on in the interest again of our short amount of time. Apologies to those that find the pink a little bit demanding, but it looks magnificent on my screen. And Jamie's too, apparently. I don't know. Hey, Jamie, look at that tie of yours, man. Maybe that's a bit too dazzling for this hour of the night too. High contrast against that
tie.
shirt. Good man. So let's look at dialogue briefly, the dialogue skill set. Now, most facilitators, as you get your training, you'll appreciate you've played with or experienced dialogue processes. But let's get to the core of it for a minute. Dialogue comes from the Greek word dialogos. Logos means the word or the meaning of the word more particularly. And dia actually doesn't mean to, it means through. So dialogue means for meaning to flow through people, to be exchanged between people, for meaning to flow between people, one or two more, obviously. It's this whole notion of flow. Thank you, David Bohm. By the way, I learned a lot about dialogue in the 1980s, would you believe, from this physics dude by the name of David Bohm. He's a doctor of physics, would you believe? And he wrote a stunning book called On Dialogue. If you've never read it, it is absolutely gold. So let's look at this dialogue skill set. Here's a few other thoughts. Let's look at dialogue compared a little bit with debate. These are two major forms of social discourse, and we often involve them in our institutions, and of course the support we offer to those in volunteer roles. So you can read these yourself, and by the way, you're welcome to these notes, of course, they'll be posted alongside the video. Closed-minded discussion. Let's have a look at another one. It's an open-minded discussion. Let's look at dialogue. It's an open-minded discussion about a topic of mutual interest where everyone feels safe to share their opinions, share their ideas, concerns. So one of the preconditions that we need to sort of generate, create, and sustain, the space we need to sustain, must include high levels of interpersonal, social, cognitive, emotional safety, social safety. And therefore, people are willing to listen to, consider, and respect other people's different perspectives to understand and embrace both. That's another way of looking at dialogue. Let's take a couple more. So this is a really interesting way of looking at dialogue. It's the free and unencumbered flow of meaning between people. That's one that I've worked on myself in my probably 7th or 8th year of practice as a facilitator. It became clear to me it's about this flow of meaning between people. You can either get mediocre results or exceptional results, and it depends on how much the tap or the faucet is open, allowing that flow to occur. So one of David Bohm's proteges, students, if you will, partners, associates, was a gentleman called William Isaacs. And Bill Isaacs has a wonderful book, wonderful material from last century. Can I say that? Last century. And the material, his definition was that dialogue is a conversation with a center and no sides. Now just take a moment in the next week or so to consider that, because my corollary back in those days was, well, debate is a conversation with a center and many sides. And there is the problem we face, okay? Because we become conflicted, we become adversarial, we become competitive, and of course we often escalate higher orders of authority to make a decision that we can't reach, or we of course outsource to a tribunal or a court to make a decision because we're unable to do so. This notion of a conversation with a central theme, a topic, a purpose. There's either no sides, we're here to learn, we're here to understand, we're here to make better decisions, we're here to build relationships and deliver better results together, or it has many sides. And that dampens that effort, that dampens our execution performance, that dampens our innovation performance, our creativity. So with that said, let's have a look at some of the interesting aspects of dialogue very quickly. I'll go through this very briefly. Dialogue is collaborative. It brings understanding. We listen for deeper meaning in the flow that is exchanged between people. We reevaluate our opinion and assumptions. So as Jamie and Heather and Brad and Gabriel are talking about something, I am continually embracing their thoughts, ideas, concerns, and experiences, and reevaluating, reassessing, and adjusting mine. And hopefully they're doing the same if the conditions are right. Open-minded, of course, putting your own beliefs to one side, not throwing them out, just putting them on the shelf, leave them there, come back, assess them in the context of the experience, and searching for validity and embracing that in all ideas that are shared. And of course, deeply, deeply respecting the value that everyone brings to that, the participants in the conversation. One of the things we've learned over a lot of years is it's great to be able to start with permission and end with gratitude. So sometimes our conversations are anything but that. Let me just tell you, Jamie, what I think. Okay, it's my turn, Jamie. And lastly, exploring different possibilities and of course, open-ended. So let's look at debate, which is quite different. Okay, debate is different from dialogue. It's oppositional. It's about proving another person to be wrong by virtue of sometimes arbitrary standard. Listening for flaws, defending your opinions and assumptions. It's closed-minded, defending your beliefs, searching for weaknesses in other people's ideas, being mean to others. That's an interesting thought. And having one right answer, it demands a conclusion, almost always. So you can see there's huge difference between these two. Let me just share with you the biggest difference of all, and that's the intention behind them. And it starts with this word heart. I step in typically into debates with a heart at war with others. And I typically stay there because of that. I step into dialogue with a heart at peace with others. That is such a powerful way of considering your intentions and motives as facilitators when you step in to be helpful to others. And of course, my comment earlier on about this notion of suspending judgment and engaging curiosity, again, is fundamental to that shift in mindset, that shift in skill set away from debate and toward dialogue. And this is, I found for many years of facilitating groups of volunteers and volunteer organizations, that this is pivotal to your success. And of course, to our clients and our group's success. So let me just, before we step into our last breakout session, Jamie's going to get you in there for another 10 minutes as we start to head towards wrapping up. Let me share this and we'll make sure this is posted. This is quite meaningful and substantial, but it's a dialogue process that has been a combination that I pulled together from my experiences with IAF, with our process tools as facilitators, professional facilitators, but also from the work that I've done over some 30 years with the Arbinger Institute around outward mindset. And of course, my friends around dialogue across the planet, particularly Crucial Learning and Vital Smarts before them. And these three big steps are key to your success and my success. First one is plan and prepare, and start by working on me, not everyone else. Don't blame, don't criticize, start working on my mindset, how I'm preparing myself. Powerful questions there for you to consider as you do that. How you invite other people to share their meaning is governed in part by the safety that is involved in creating these conditions for them to share their meaning. We all need a voice, we all need to be seen, we all need to be respected, and we need a mutual purpose. And then finally, once you've exchanged all the meaning that needs to take place in 15 minutes in a small group or in 2 hours in a large group workshop, then you can decide on who will do what by when, and how will you follow up with each other to be helpful, remain helpful to one another, and be accountable for the help you bring. So there's a very, very quick snapshot of a powerful dialogue process that's built on an outward mindset.
Brad, just while you've been talking, you've had so many people engaged, and Gabriel just says it very nicely and succinctly when he says he loves it. And you've all I'm seeing are people's faces glued to the screen, nodding and listening to what you're saying. And I can see their minds envisaging putting it into practice.
Okay.
So,
So let me ask you this question, people. This is one of those 5 questions I gave you earlier on. And you can use a thumb, or you can put a smile on your face, or you can wave. I don't mind. Is this helpful to you? Sweet, giddy up. I mean, that's the kind of question you want to ask, right? So we'll do more of this. If that's useful to you, we'll do more of this. Is that helpful? Huh? Got the idea? Okay, let's press on. It's time for you to have a chat. Jamie, we're going to pop everyone into their last breakout for tonight, which is only 10 minutes. A couple of big questions there on the screen. In what ways have you designed for and sustained the conditions for dialogue when working with volunteers? Just share that very quickly. What's your favorite, most effective and most impactful dialogue process or technique? I've shared mine. It's your turn to share yours with others. Okay, thanks, Jamie.
And Shane?
It's just that big pipe between Australia and Singapore. It's that big technology pipe between Australia and Singapore. Singapore always gets back in the room first. What is it, Gabriel?
Well,
welcome
5G
back.
technology.
Yeah, 5G, man. There you go. It's that big pipe. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Look, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to give you a chance. One person. What was the insight? What was the insight, or what emerged through that conversation, brief as it was, around the use of dialogue as a practice in serving the needs of volunteers? That's a perfectly reasonable request. We can stop the screen share. That's easy to do. How's that?
Can I
That's a great idea.
can I do a
Yeah,
share?
can.
Yeah, look, I was in a room with Selena and Gabrielle, and it was just really interesting to hear not only what they did, but something very simple that Selena did that made a huge difference. Volunteer coming in, doing basic stuff, and then asking, what are they interested in? What do they do? And just asking that question. And this is my reading of it, Selena, so feel free to tell me I got it wrong. But that enabled Selena's mob, for want of a better term, to connect with an extra 300 people that they wouldn't have otherwise. So brilliant.
Perfect.
Thank you, Selena. You've made my evening.
Perfect.
I'll go back into the dark now.
Thank you, Pam, and thanks, Selena. But that is so true, isn't it? We just got to get curious about other people rather than judge. It's too easy to judge.
Yeah.
Selena.
And so I think in that case too, I'm talking about someone whose English is a second language in Brisbane. So just thinking that this person can only manage to do some basic work on a computer, whereas to what she had is expertise in delivering and connecting with her community was quite a different conversation. So moving the dialogue from what's on your list to what's on their list.
How good is that? How good is that? Thank you, Selena. I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Look, I'm going to share the screen again. In the interest of our little bit of time left, I want to touch just 3 slides that wrap up the session effectively. These are now talking about the influence tool set. And again, the intent here was not to do a deep dive. It was really to give you a chance to talk to one another around these 3 keys and a little bit of superficial introductory information around what works, has been proven through deep research and practice over the last 30, 40 years to be our best human practice. And certainly as facilitators, that's what we want to bring to life with our clients and our organizations. Dr. John Maxwell is one of my mentors from many years ago, and he simply says this: leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And so trying to understand what influence is, social influence, interpersonal influence, is critical to our success here. So I've got just 2 slides I'm going to share with you. One is the influence pyramid, and this is described in the work of the Arbinger Institute. Jamie's going to include some contact details there for you in the chat. If you want to reach out, we can send you a bunch of resources that will help you, or some links that will guide you, point you to various locations on the web where you can do a personal deeper dive. But what I want you to see here is the influence pyramid. What we often do out of judgment is we correct other people. What we need to do is we need to get our mindset outward first, which is at the base of the pyramid. Everything else extends from there. Building relationships, listening and learning to one another, teaching and communicating. We want to minimize the amount of correction. In order to do that, we need to start with ourselves. How might I extend my mindset to be outward towards others? That's the key here. If we don't measure the impact of our efforts on the objectives of those we are serving, we'll remain blind to the important ways we need to adjust, and we'll simply end up not serving others well. We might deceive ourselves into believing we are serving others well. Now, I was talking with some people in the aged care industry just recently, one of my clients, and I've not mentioned their name, so don't stress over that. And they thought they were doing a brilliant job. What they were doing was getting in the way. They were actually hindering the needs and expectations of those that they purported to serve. But they had managed to justify to themselves and managed to deceive themselves over and over and over again into believing that they were actually providing service. Now, I can say the same for other conversations I've had with chief executives and senior managers and people in the engineering or the mining world. So we just need to take on board this notion of an outward mindset as a key to our influence with others. The last little point I'm going to make in the short time that we have, oh, by the way, I will say one thing. What we do know through practice is that when we try to start at the top of the influence pyramid, we try to correct other people and it doesn't work. Often what we do is we double down on correction. We end up in a conflict. Parents, have a think about it. I know I did. I know I did, right? We double down. But the truth is we'll always find a solution to something that's not working at the level below. So if you're trying to correct somebody and it's not working, you need to go down and try and teach and communicate. Let me explain why. If that's not working, you'll find it in listen and learn. So what are you trying to achieve? Why is that important to you? Well, listen and learn is the next level down. You got the general idea? So if you start at the correction, always work lower. Okay, last slide. We typically what we do for just 2 reasons, and so too will your groups. So too will the groups you serve in whatever voluntary capacity they come together. Forget the money, forget the pay, forget everything else. They do what they do. You and I do what we do for 2 reasons, because we want to and we can. We're motivated, we're able. Now, our friends at Vital Smarts, now known as Crucial Learning around the world, they've been working, these are social scientists, they've been working on this for 30 years. And I've been working with them for at least 25. And so if you look at these influences in our lives, they're incredibly powerful. There's 6 of them, 6 categories. And the personal, social, and structural influences are built around motivation and ability. Can do, want to. 4 of them are human in nature, and 2 of them are not. They're structural. They're really the physical world. What I want to encourage you to do, check the notes out. I don't expect you. You can take a screenshot now if you wanted, but I don't expect you to do that. Feel free to have a look at those and think about these forces that are influencing you and I as we facilitate the needs of others, the processes that we engage with these voluntary groups. But think about also those same forces are influencing the people in the room, the volunteers in their organizations, and as we come together. Okay. So it's time to wrap up. So at 7:30, it's time for a very quick reflection. And Jamie and I like this little slide, don't we, Jamie? I think they must be your shoes, are they, Jamie? They're not. I don't have any shoes like that.
A bit too shiny for mine.
They're a bit too shiny for yours, man. Okay. So very quickly, for those of you who feel inclined, please have a look in the chat. We will save the chat as well. But feel free to add your thoughts, reflections. Was this a useful time together? And if you want to, open a mic. You've got literally 30 seconds because we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. Open a mic and share with your colleagues, people you've met for the first time, perhaps, what you valued from today, and then we'll start to wrap up. So over to you for a quick reflection.
Learned heaps, loved meeting everyone.
Beautiful, Pam. Thank you. That's nice. That's brief and functional and deeply felt, I'm sure. Thank you, Pam. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Thank
very
you, Shane.
enlightening. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Yvonne. Was it worth staying up or getting up or whatever? What's the
Yeah,
time?
it was a bit of a struggle, but I can absolutely say, Cox, at that it was definitely worth it. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure, Yvonne. See you again in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. Thank you to
Others?
everybody.
You're welcome. All right, folks.
Thank you,
Worth
Selena,
it to
too.
me. I've got to go.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thanks, Laurel.
Yeah.
Excellent,
Bye,
folks.
guys.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's wrap it up. Farewell, stay safe, and we'll see you again in the future.